Hey, welcome to the Free Refills podcast, where we talk about the realities of leading in youth ministry. We hope that you leave refreshed, refueled, and re-energized to carry on in your youth ministry. And so my name is Wayne Morgan. My friend Johnny Radcliffe is with me. How you doing today, my brother?
It's summer. Absolutely. It is summer through and through. It's sweltering. We're in the dog days of summer.
That's right.
I can't decide if I want the kids back in school and I want like a regular schedule or if I like summer. I'm in the point where I'm just confused.
I know. I'm post-camp, so I'm like, wow.
As I'm looking at August, we have a couple things that are lined up with prayer stuff. Like after you guys hear this interview, we're going to jump into that part of it. But that's something that can kind of take off the doldrums of the middle of summer. They can kind of pick you up because I'm with you. I'm kind of in that like post camp vibe of like, okay, where are we at here? What is the month of August? I don't even know. We're just we're here. It's summer, and as we turn the page to August, I think the prayer thing is going to start getting stuff flowing. So we'll tell you more about that at the end of the podcast. And I guess, hey, let's not delay it. It's summer mode, right? Like,
That's right.
let's do
Yeah.
it. Like, let's jump into this thing.
Yeah, so here is a interview with our men, Steve Cullum in Colorado and Travis Deans in Pittsburgh. It's been awesome to get to know you guys while you've been on staff, and we were wondering, what are some of the things that brought you to National Network? We're always saying it's better together, but for our team, what were some of the reasons that you said, "Hey, I want to be a part of NNYM and what they're doing"? Travis, I do believe you probably have the seniority in the room, so would you please honor us with how you were brought to NNYM?
I majored in youth ministry in college, and I didn't know where that was going to go or what it was going to look like exactly, but I landed in a parachurch ministry after graduating. And at that time, that particular ministry was in a time of transition, and there was a lot of opportunities for new things to happen. And so it was, we did some stuff the first couple of years I was there, but in the year 2000, I found out about an event that National Network was sponsoring in Kansas City, and so I went out there just to check it out, and it intrigued me. And I heard about this idea of, hey, let's bring youth ministries together. Let's bring youth pastors together, youth workers, to see what we can do together in local communities. And I came back so excited. I'm like, this is what we need to do. This is the thing, because our community had youth pastors in all the different churches. And although our parachurch ministry had been around quite a while, we didn't want to create a spirit of competition. We were like, let's bring these guys together and see what happens. And so the National Network really provided me with 20 years of ministry direction, bringing youth workers together. And of course, that network is that was the first of many networks that we started in the Western Pennsylvania. And I actually was with NNYM as a volunteer area coordinator for Western Pennsylvania for a long time. And but just have always believed in the fact that we are, as you said, Wayne, we are better together than we are on our own. And one of the things that really helped me with, or just shaped kind of my thinking about all that, is a quote that I heard years and years ago, which was that, when God looks at a city, he doesn't see many churches. When God looks at a city, he sees one church in many congregations. And, hearing that and finding out what National Network did, it was just like, yes, this is the future of youth ministry. It's doing it together. It's seeing each other as teammates on the same team to reach a community for Christ. So that's my story.
And I actually found out about NNYM in college around the same time. So I was kind of tipped off to the networking idea, but we were the denomination that we were a part of was pretty tight still. And yeah, it was harder to network with anybody outside of the denomination. So Steve, how about you, man? What were some of the entry points for you to become connected with National Network of Youth Ministries?
Yeah, I think it goes way back. Funny enough, even before you guys. So when I got in high school, my youth pastor was just very, very networked. I just saw that as, I don't know if he was officially a part of the national network. You know, as a kid in the youth group, we didn't know those kind of things. We just knew that I knew Tim and I knew a lot of Tim's friends. And we got together with their youth groups on a regular basis. We saw each other at camp. We all went to the same events, all these different things. And he just modeled that youth ministry is not just one church. It is all the churches coming together. And me naturally, just like who I am is I want to be around people. And so I just totally, it made sense to me. I got into it. And so that's just the model that I saw growing up. So I was a part of See You at the Pole and everything, but I had no idea that it was a part of National Network. I just knew, hey, we pray at the school's flagpole, once a year. And so it wasn't until I went to Bible college when I first learned about the National Network. And that was my youth ministry professor, just really teaching us how we need to be networked. And as I did ministry within where I went to college, it was really easy to be connected because I was in a Bible college town and so many people are connected naturally. And it was a great network to be a part of, even if it was more organic. As soon as I went out to New England to do ministry, all of a sudden I was in a completely different world in the Midwest. And I realized why networking was so important. And so that was when I had to actually be a little more proactive in creating a network, remembered NNYM, and said, okay, I know this organization exists. I should probably use their resources to actually help me network with other people. And so that just kind of started this whole snowball effect of the more and more I got connected with NNYM, turned in from leading a couple local networks to helping as a state coordinator, as a volunteer, to doing that at a different state. And then all of a sudden here I am full time as a state coordinator.
Now you're on staff.
So really, I think, it goes back to just knowing, like having that modeled for me for a long time. Then also the direct personal effect that I know what it's like to be alone in ministry, and I know what it's like to be connected to other people, and I definitely want to be connected. That's the only way to do it.
Wayne and I were just talking yesterday about how we often talk about networking for people in ministry, but one of the exciting things is that that impacts students in our ministries. And what a great example right there of how being networked has a positive, powerful impact on a student, impacts their faith, how they see the church as a whole, and impacting your future as someone in ministry. Man, what a cool story.
We have a culture that is in desperate need of connection, and I think that NNYM is a beautiful way to do it. I remember I was similar to Travis when you came into the area with a parachurch. I came into the area with Youth for Christ, and so networking was the first thing I wanted to do. So I wasn't a competition to the other youth workers. I just wanted to know what was going on, and so my job was to build Bible clubs that were in the area, who were student leaders in the youth ministries that would want to help impact their school a little bit and work together for events like See You at the Pole. And it was a transformational part of my life, was recognizing that other churches were out there. And I grew up in an area that was around a Bible college too. So there was a lot of synchronization around the Bible college stuff, but it was so different to move into an area where people didn't have something that they could rally around, like a Bible college or radio station, some of those things. So I think it's really, really important to help people find a common ground to link arms over.
Yeah, I love what you said about like the idea of competition. And I think being a natural competitor, like really into sports and all that stuff, so that stuff comes so natural to me. But I always felt like just this gross feeling every time that a thought of competition came into my mind when it came to the church. And so like you can have some healthy, fun competitions, between each other, but the kind of competition that happens that just drives a wedge between churches should not be there. And so I think for me, like that's the best way to combat all of that is let's get together, let's network, let's actually be on the same team so that we don't have this idea of competition at all.
And when we are helping students kind of see that, it kind of is something that they will, just like your story, Steve, they emulate because they see it in us. And so in your experience, especially growing up in a church, what were some of the high points that your youth pastor displayed that you said, wow, was it the relationship? Was it the better events? Like, what were some of the things that you recognized that it wasn't competition in him?
I think it was like, for me, it was just the bigger picture. Like, I was constantly able to see that it's bigger than just my church. It's bigger than just my youth group. Like, I knew that even if I didn't see these other students on a regular basis at school, man, I knew that there were a lot of other Christians out there and were believing the same thing as me. And for me, like, that's what really got me connected to youth group in the beginning, because I grew up in a very small rural church with mostly elderly people, and I didn't want to go to church. But as soon as I realized that there was a church across town that actually had a youth group and I could go to church and be surrounded by my peers, man, now I'm going to give God more of a chance. And so to have that even more, I fell in love with camps and events and everything, because it gave me this bigger picture of the overall kingdom. And so, yeah, we were able to do more stuff together, and it was bigger stuff and all these different things. There's more energy in the room. But I think the biggest thing that I grabbed from it was that bigger picture of the overall kingdom, that, like, man, this is so much bigger than what I see on a weekly basis.
Travis, that's one of the things where you have leveraged networking to that next level with 9-month missions trip, and you're able to help rally students in schools together. How did you stumble into that space? Was that something that your organization did, or was that something that you just were inspired to launch yourself?
Well, so one of the things that youth pastors in a community have in common is that their students go to school together. I'm not totally, not completely, but in like the town where I live, our kids, all of the students here go to 3 different high schools. Doing something that impacts those 3 schools benefits all of our youth ministries in a tremendous way. So, I mean, the 9-month mission trip thing kind of goes back to my own story in high school. I felt called to be a missionary to my high school, and started a Bible club. And so when I graduated college, that was one of the things we started doing, was helping students like you did, Wayne, start Bible clubs in their schools. But we worked with youth pastors a lot on that because they had students in school together. And it's like my denomination, we have youth retreats, and it's great for those kids to come together and see all of the other students in our denomination in one place. That's awesome. But what's another thing that's really helpful is for them to see there's other believers in my school that I can see on a daily basis. There are other believers there that I can connect with, and I can be encouraged. And so anyway, so we started helping youth pastors to provide training for students to share their faith, to provide training to start clubs. And I don't really remember when, but we just started using that phrase, 9-month mission trip. A new school year is coming. It's going to be a 9-month mission trip. And one year I think it was in 2011 or 12, a friend of mine designed a logo for that. And, there's something powerful about visuals, right? About imagery. When he designed that logo, it was almost like, oh, this is something. We need to do something with this. And so we started the website, and which I think that launched in 2012. Really, we just want to help students to realize that their time at school is not just random and I don't even know why I'm here. It's purposeful. There's the educational purpose, of course, but there's spiritual purpose too. God has them there for a purpose and a reason. When a group of youth pastors in a town get a hold of that idea that, hey, this, impacting this school, equipping our students to impact this school together, I mean, that's a whole other level of effectiveness that, you just can't achieve on your own. And so it's just been exciting to see that play out over the years.
And, I don't know about you guys, but like the idea of praying for a school is almost foreign until somebody's an evangelist for it. you know, like, or your youth pastor says, hey, why don't we pray for our schools? But like, even National Day of Prayer, getting together and praying together, like, it should be something that we do on a regular basis other than just before food at the restaurant. But I was drawn to see you at the poll just because I was like, wow, I complain about school, I probably should pray for it. And I went to a Christian school, right? Like, that was a space where I didn't recognize, oh man, I guess we could come together and start praying for our school. And those are some things that are really powerful, but they have so much more power when there's a collaboration around it. You know, when it isn't just one denomination, one church. And just like what you said, Travis, like, the idea of your denominations getting together, that's phenomenal. But when those kids go back into their school and they see people that they went on the retreat with that are from another church, man, the power that is in that space and the catalyst that can have, you don't have to break down the walls. They already have natural relationships already built.
It sounds like that was your experience, Steve, right? Where you were seeing people that you went to school with at these different things, and
Yep.
how powerful that was, right?
It was so cool because I knew we had differing, theologies or whatever, but that didn't matter. Like, we were all about Jesus. We were all about reaching our school and bringing more teenagers to Jesus. And so, yeah, like, for the most part, at that time, I mean, it's a little bit different in the world now. Like, some teenagers do get into the theology discussions and arguments and stuff like that around that. But for me, it was like, I don't care, like how we differ on all these other things. Like, as long as we can see eye to eye on Jesus, that's all we need to.
When I started working with National Network of Youth Ministries, it became a space where I was connecting youth pastors, just trying to encourage them. And I tell people all the time, I am not the cool person. I just know a lot of really cool people, even though I have to raise my own support, even though I don't know how I'm going to pay for health insurance, even though I have no idea if I have a retirement account. That is what I'm called to, because the body of Christ needs connection, but that call isn't necessarily an easy spot. And as somebody on staff, helping other people come on staff, that's a really big decision to move away from a youth ministry and come on staff with NNYM. And so for you guys, what was some of the major catalysts for you? What were some of the stories? Because I think sometimes telling the story of that tipping point, that holy moment where you go, yep, this is where I'm called to, is really helpful and inspiring for other people. What was the tipping point for you to start coming on staff and working with National Network Youth Ministries?
I think mine was probably, I mean, it was a growing thing for sure. It was gradual, that like more and more I got involved, more and more I enjoyed it. But I'd say probably one of the big tipping points was COVID of all times. When all of a sudden the church ministry slowed down, and I wasn't able to be with students and be with families all the time. And I was forced to do this a lot, like to stare at my computer screen and be on Zoom. And all of a sudden, I was able to now connect with more and more youth workers who were also going through struggles of like, how do I do ministry in a pandemic? And not that I was an expert, because I was trying to figure it out as well. But I was able to start having more and more conversations with them, both within our state and around the country. And there was one day that I walked out of my home office, and my wife looked at me and she's like, you look like I used to only see that look on your face when you came home from youth group. But like, the fact that I just got to pour into and have good discussions and help other youth leaders for like a few hours that day, that was filling me up. And I realized that it was something that God had, like, he'd been growing that passion within me for a while, but that was a big tipping point. And then here recently, I guess soon before I made the decision to move over to NNYM full time. I mean, I struggled with the whole, fundraising thing. It's a big hurdle for sure. But when I realized, man, I have this passion for teenagers, but I also have this passion for uniting the church and for helping other youth leaders. And I really think this next stage of my life needs to be centered on that. And I can't balance that anymore. I'm going to have to make that shift. And once I did that, man, it's been an awesome ride, even though it's been only like 4 or 5 months so far, but it's been really awesome.
How about you, Travis? What were some of the tipping points for you to go, hey, I want to actually work with National Network of Youth Ministries, not volunteer with them, actually try to make this a paycheck thing?
Yeah, COVID played into my story as well, because so I was working with this parachurch ministry, but I was also part-time as a youth pastor at my church, and I did that for about 10 years. 2019, I had a new middle school guy. We went on our national youth conference with me, and I'm like, this guy is really good. He's really good at ministry. He clearly has the call of God on his life. And even though I'd been at the church 10 years, I for a long time, I just felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm just seeing this young guy getting excited about youth ministry. I'm seeing him being effective in ministry. And at the same time, Doug Clark from National Network contacted me and, hey, we have this opening, and would you pray about it? And just kind of these things, for the first time in my life, I'm like, you know what? I feel God releasing me and freeing me to leave this one thing and go do the other. And I'd always believed in the power of networking, and just seeing youth pastors do such cool things together. And I love that feeling of connecting people. When you can introduce someone to someone else that, hey, you need to know this person, and they get together and they do something amazing. I love that. And so in August of 2020 is when that was my first month on staff. And, the support raising was, as you said, Steve, it was a hurdle, but, the training that I got coming into this was transformative. I've done support raising for decades and realized I'm doing it all wrong. Or at least I could be doing it way better. And so the training was phenomenal. It was so helpful, and I was just like, okay, God, this is it. And it was funny because I think it was right around that time, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out, and there's this one part of the movie where Miles Morales he's holding Peter Parker by the hand, and he he's going to let him go, and he's like, oh, it's a leap of faith. And that I know it sounds kind of corny, but it was just kind of like, you know what? I need to take a step of faith here. Am I going to follow God into this or not? Because I could stay safe. I could just keep doing what I'm doing, or I could take a jump and see what happens, see what God does. And of course, it's been incredible. It's been incredible to be part of this amazing team, and you jump into support raising, and you feel like the ground has been taken out from under you in a way, right? Because there's not the guarantee of a paycheck, but there's no job in the world that you're guaranteed to keep and have a paycheck, right? You can lose any job you ever get. You can lose any paycheck you ever have. So I took the jump and found that God is the one who's holding us up, right? He's the one that holds us up and provides. And so.
Well, and for those who are listening who are like, I don't even know what support racing is like, it's like chasing every single student down who's supposed to pay for camp, who hasn't paid for camp, so that you can actually get a paycheck. That's what support racing is like.
And some of those people have been the exact same people that I chased down for checks with their parents and kids.
So you've got practice with it. You've got practice. Yeah, support raising is one of those things where it is so daunting, but there's some jobs that you're called to do, and you'll do the side hustle on the side. Like some of you that are listening to the podcast right now, you're doing this in youth ministry anyway, right? To be a youth pastor, you have to work full time at a grocery store. You've got to work full time someplace in order to get health insurance. And when you're called to something, it is a leap of faith, though. It is something that you don't necessarily know where the bottom of the pool is, but you're going to jump in. Well, guys, you are both incredible leaders. You're both incredible team builders. And so we're thankful that God brought you to NNYM. if there's one thing you could tell somebody that is not connected to a network right now, what would one piece of advice be to them as they're listening through? Maybe they just glanced off of this podcast and are like, hey, I know Steve. I know that they know a lot of people, but they don't get the networking thing. What would one piece of advice be that you would have for those people who are listening?
I was with a group of youth pastors last week, and we were at a pizza place planning an event together. And we had so much fun. It was just, we laughed our heads off. We barely got any work done. We were laughing so hard. I would just say, if you are not networking, you are missing out on a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You're missing out on some incredible friendships. You're missing out on some fun experiences and opportunities that you just can't get any other way. And these guys, they're like brothers I didn't know I had. It's that kind of thing. And so if I would just say, don't miss out on this amazing thing that God can give you.
Yeah, that's good. Some of my best friends are other youth leaders. In fact, most of my best friends are other youth leaders because we just get each other, and it's so much fun to get together. I'd say on top of that, don't believe the lie that you can do it on your own, because you can't. First of all, we need God.
Why would you want to?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so much more fun to do it with friends, but man, we can do so much more together. And if we really do want to reach the teenagers, all the teenagers in our communities, we've got to partner together. There's no way that each of us individually can do that on our own. But man, what can God do when his people really do collaborate and cooperate together? I mean, I'm reading through Acts right now, and just, man, it's so amazing to see what God does through the church when they actually are unified and united together with one purpose. And that's what we can be a part of. We can actually be a part of making that happen here in our time now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Steve, we know that this isn't the only place you've ever talked about networking. I know that you champion it in other channels. So what are some other places that people can follow you, pay attention to you, kind of figure out what you do?
Most of what I do is on probably my blog is probably the easiest way, is stevecullum.com. And there you can find some writing that I do about youth ministry and networking. You can also find my podcast at Student Ministry Connection. And it's on most of the podcast platforms out there. And it's a great place to just go. I have conversations with other youth leaders, and occasionally I'll talk myself about some things that I've learned over the years. But the goal is really, to connect youth leaders together, and we grow together as well.
How about you, Travis? You have like 36 different areas that you're always going in. And I'm like, wow, Travis is a part of that. So just give them the short list this time, though. So where are some places they can connect with you, Travis?
Probably the best one would be 9monthmissiontrip.com. That's the easiest way. But you can find me on social media, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Look me
Not
up.
TikTok? Not TikTok? Okay.
Yeah.
We gotta get you over there, Travis.
I'm not near cool enough for TikTok.
Well, that sounds like another podcast, but thanks so much, guys, for being a part of National Network of Youth Ministries, both as just interested people, as volunteers, and now as staff. And hopefully this time together is inspired and help people understand our staff a little bit better, but also understand your story. And if you want to go ahead and support them, even youth pastors can support NNYM staff. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep.
That was some really awesome stuff from two guys we love a lot. So what stuff popped out to you in that podcast?
Well, three guys, Wayne. Don't count yourself out. We love you too, okay?
I'm just a host, man. I'm just a host.
You did a great job. I mean, the conversation was light and playful, just what everyone wants. So congrats.
Perfect. Oh, thank you.
So yes, hearing their story. Also, I just want to make sure the world knows I claim Steve Cullum. I wore him down. He joined on staff and he succumbed to my will. I don't know if that's truthful, but it's probably 80% true.
Makes yourself feel good, right?
Absolutely, yes. The chief networker recruits other networkers. That's discipleship. But to that end, he did mention there how even his wife would notice that that invigoration that you get, he was getting it from being with other leaders and being with other youth pastors and networking. And that's when you know that being together really makes a difference. When you can come out of there fueled up and have that same sense of fulfillment that you can get from a good night at youth group. He's a networker through and through, and that really stood out to me. I don't know if you noticed that part in the conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, for the person that's listening and is like, man, there's some people I don't like to network with. That's true too. Even for networkers, there are some people where you go, all right, I have to love them, but there's something special about networkers when they find other people who are networking, and it's just life-giving for us. So
Love it. So he's clearly in the right role. So glad that happened. Glad I could make that happen. You're welcome,
good work.
Steve.
Good work.
But it's just testimony why working together just does wonders for getting through ministry. But he also mentioned what it did for students too. And I don't think a lot of people think of that, in the sense that when you are connected to other churches as the leader, your students, then they pick up on that.
Yeah.
You know, like in conversation, if you're like, hey, my buddy who's at the church down the road, like the more we can say these things, or hey, two youth groups are coming together, and you start to see other students that you know at school that you didn't know were Christ followers, like all of this overlap needs to happen, because it's just so easy to get wrapped up in our own program, our building, our this and that, and not connect to the bigger picture of the local church. So I heard that in his conversation coming through as well.
And I think we miss it huge as pastors if we don't think that people outside of church are intermixing with other churches. So that's already happening. It's already a natural thing. People are working with other Christians. And if you're blasting people that, believe a specific doctrine, and you're not talking about the John 17 coming together for the sake of the gospel, man, it creates a very lonely space for Christianity. So I think it's helpful for us to remember our people are already in the community together with other believers. And so we've got to model that in leadership as well.
Yeah. And how tone deaf do we look when we make it an us versus them within the church? And even to that point, there was a little bit of conversation about competition within churches. Yeah. And I haven't experienced that to a large degree, but I do know it exists. And I know that one of the detractors that keeps us from coming together is insecurity of, I'm just the little church. I don't want to spend time with the big church, or even vice versa. If they're not worth my time, all that kind of stuff does exist. So either way, it was good to hear the story of these two guys who have done a great job reaching outside their own church walls and connecting other leaders to each other, and just modeling for us how to be the church.
I love that you don't have to draw it out of those guys, because it's already part of their heartbeat. And I wish we could train that more in seminary, where coming together as the body of Christ was a priority, because it was a priority for Jesus, and he prayed that over us. And it was our love for each other that would make us stand out. Sometimes I wonder if our evangelism is short-circuited because we just don't love each other in a proximity. So it should be a priority. I think that theologically I could defend that.
Yeah, I think you got a chance there. But they also mentioned about praying for schools, and what a coincidence. We have something of that nature that we can talk about as well. What do you think about that, Wayne?
Man, every time God does a great work, it's first preceded by prayer. Like historically you see that. And so we're trying to model that a little bit as we get into our school year. We're doing a thing called Footprints and Funds, and we're trying to help our staff get started off, because we're all self-supported missionaries, but we also want people praying. So over this month, we're going to be doing short little videos on all of our socials to help people intentionally pray for schools and intentionally pray for people who are a part of schools.
Absolutely. And listen, if you're listening to this and maybe you don't have a habit of praying for a school when you go by it, or if you never carved out time, to pray on campus, or even just buy it if you can't get close to it. Listen, we need some like real intercessory prayers for the schools. We need some like specific asks from God, because I believe the prayer covering in a school is the thing that's just going to trailblaze the real life change that can come through. So I'm pumped for it. I'm pumped to jump into it with some of my friends in this area. And if you're listening and you want to jump in on the fun, you can definitely do it. You can, pray for a school. You can join up with other leaders and do it. So yeah.
And if you and steal the idea, if you're like, oh, that's a really good idea, I should have done that. Do it for your youth ministry. Do it for 20 days. Do it for 30 days. Like, do it for an indeterminate amount of time, but encourage people to pray. And man, the effectual fervent prayer of the righteous availeth much, right? So like, that's James. And why aren't we using prayer more? Partially because I think we replaced the dependence on the Holy Spirit with our strategy, and you might need both. So
yeah, exactly. Not only is that James, it's actually King James. Did I hear availeth much? That was good.
Yeah, that was some of my roots are showing, bro.
That was really good. That was sultry. That was nice. So keep that availeth much. Let's go avail much. Okay.
I'm game, man. Let's see what happens.
All right. Sounds good to me.
Well, hopefully these last few minutes have been encouraging to you. And if you like the podcast, go ahead and like it, subscribe to it, share it if it's beneficial for somebody. But all in all, we want to help you, encourage you through youth ministry. So if you have any ideas, please email us at podcast@nnym.org. And we would love to chat about what you care about. So until next time, my name is Wayne Morgan. This is my friend Johnny Radcliffe, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.